My girlfriend wanted a bad boy. And the crazy part is, I spent months blaming myself for not being one. My name is Michael, and this story starts on a rainy Thursday evening. The kind of evening where the whole world feels heavy, except your heartbeat, because you already know something is wrong. I was standing outside her apartment building, holding a small paper bag with her favorite chocolate croissants. I had no reason to be there. She hadn't called, she hadn't texted. But for the last 3 days, she had been acting strange, like her mind was in two places at once, like I wasn't enough to hold her attention anymore. I kept telling myself it was just stress, just life, just overthinking. But when a man starts feeling distance, it isn't overthinking, it's instinct. I knocked on her door. No answer. I knocked again, harder this time. Still nothing. And then I heard it. A laugh. A deep male laugh echoing from inside her apartment. For a second, I froze. That laugh didn't belong to her father, or her brother, or any friend I knew. My hand tightened around the bag. My heart sank into a place I didn't know existed. I didn't want to listen. I didn't want to hear anything. But the universe doesn't ask what you want. Because a moment later, I heard her voice, lower, softer, the way she only spoke when she wanted to impress someone. My stomach twisted. I stepped back from the door and took a deep breath that didn't even reach my lungs. I didn't knock again. I didn't call her. I didn't even say her name. I just left. But fate is cruel in a very specific way. It doesn't break you all at once. It breaks you slowly, scene by scene. The next morning, she called me. "Sorry, I was sleeping," she said. Sleep at 9 p.m. with a man laughing in the background? I didn't confront her. Maybe I should have. But nice guys don't confront. Nice guys give the benefit of the doubt. Nice guys try to be understanding. I simply said, "It's okay." But she hesitated before replying. That hesitation was the truth. Her words were the lie. Day by day, she grew colder, more distracted, more distant. Then one afternoon, sitting at our usual cafe, she said the sentence that shattered everything. "Michael, you're too nice." I blinked. What does that mean? She stirred her iced latte like she was bored. I mean, you're predictable, safe, good, but I want someone with edge, someone confident, someone who isn't scared to break rules sometimes. I want a man who has fire. A bad boy. She didn't say the words directly, but she didn't need to. The message was carved into every syllable. I sat there in silence, feeling like a character being rewritten in real time. "You want someone else," I finally said. Her eyes lifted. She didn't deny it. And silence is sometimes louder than betrayal. She left the cafe before I could say anything more. She didn't cry. She didn't look back. She was already gone. The next few months were empty. Not heartbreak, emptiness. There's a difference. Heartbreak feels like fire, but emptiness, it feels like cold metal inside the chest. I unfollowed her on everything. I deleted our pictures. I tried to sleep more to feel less. But then one night, scrolling through social media, I saw her, smiling, laughing, in the arms of the same guy whose voice I heard through that apartment door. He had tattoos, a motorcycle, that arrogant smirk that girls confuse with confidence. A real bad boy. And she looked happy. Or at least she looked like she wanted to appear happy. I closed the app and sat there, letting a decision form inside me. A decision that didn't come from pain, but from clarity. If she thought I was weak, if she believed I was too nice, if she walked out because she thought I wasn't enough, then she had no idea who I could become. That night, something inside me shifted. Not bitterness, not revenge, but purpose. I started working on myself, not to win her back, not to prove anything to her, but to rebuild the man I had abandoned while trying to love her. I joined the gym, I upgraded my wardrobe, I cut my hair, I focused on my career. I learned to say no. I learned to prioritize myself. I learned that being a good man doesn't mean being a doormat. And slowly, something incredible happened. Confidence replaced softness. Strength replaced insecurity. Purpose replaced loneliness. I wasn't becoming a bad boy. I was becoming a better man. Months passed. Then one evening, as fate would have it, I saw her again, standing outside a grocery store. Not smiling this time, not glowing. She looked tired, worn out, lost. She didn't notice me at first, not until I walked past her. Her breath caught. Michael? I turned. The look on her face was the beginning of everything she never expected. Regret. Michael? Is that really you? I didn't answer immediately. I simply stood there, a grocery bag in my hand, calm in a way I never used to be. Inside my chest, my heartbeat was steady. Steady like a man who had finally grown into himself. She stepped closer, searching my face like she was trying to match me with a memory. You look different, she whispered. I wasn't cruel. I didn't smirk. I didn't say, yeah, you lost the right to notice. I just gave a small, polite nod. Hi, Mira. Her lips parted slightly at the way her own name sounded from me, without attachment, without softness, without the version of me she remembered. For the first time, she was the one playing catch-up. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the way she always did when she was nervous. How have you been? She asked, eyes scanning me again, almost hungrily. I've been good, I said simply, but the truth was written all over me. Healthier, sharper, more confident, more grounded. When a man rebuilds himself, the world sees it, even before he speaks. She stared for a moment, then inhaled shakily. You look really good. Her tone carried something she didn't want me to hear. A quiet ache, a realization, a wish. But I didn't give her that moment. Thanks, I said. You okay? You seem different. That question broke her composure. Her shoulders dropped, her eyes lost the fake strength she'd been forcing. For a second, she looked like someone battling something she didn't want to admit. She let out a bitter, tiny laugh. Yeah, different is one way to put it. I waited, silently, calmly, and silence has power, the kind of power that makes guilty hearts confess. She sighed, looking away. Things didn't work out. She didn't need to say with who. I already knew. The man she left me for. The one with the tattoos, the predictable story, the predictable ending. But I didn't say a word. I just kept my face neutral. She swallowed hard, glancing toward the parking lot like she was afraid he might appear. He wasn't who I thought he was, she whispered. People rarely are, when your attraction is built on fantasy instead of truth. I didn't judge her. I didn't pity her. I simply waited. Her eyes met mine again, this time full of a pain she could no longer hide. He changed after I moved in with him. Or maybe he was always like that, and I just refused to see it. Her voice broke on the last word, and for a moment she looked fragile, but not in a way that touched me. Not anymore. What happened? I asked, quietly. She hesitated, but something inside her finally snapped. He was controlling, she said, manipulative, jealous. He'd disappear for days, come back smelling like alcohol and perfume, and then blame me for being too emotional. I stood still, listening, without reacting. He quit ill, she continued. He'd flirt with other women in front of me, and if I said anything, he'd mock me. He acted like he owned me. Her hands trembled. He wasn't a bad boy. He was just bad. A small silence settled between us, heavy but honest. And you? I asked. Where are you staying now? She looked away, embarrassed. With a friend, for now. For now. Meaning homeless, drifting, lost. But I didn't say that. I didn't need to. She took a shaky breath. I made the worst mistake of my life. Her eyes lifted slowly, filled with a regret she wasn't even trying to hide anymore. You were good to me, better than I ever deserved. I didn't respond. Her voice softened, fragile. I miss us, Michael. There it was. The sentence she had probably rehearsed 100 times. The sentence she thought would pull me back. But I wasn't the same man she walked away from. I met her gaze calmly. We're not the same people anymore, Mira. She blinked fast, as if holding back tears. I know, she whispered. But maybe we could talk? Get a coffee? Just as friends? Friends. That word used to be a knife. Now it felt like an old memory. Why? I asked, gently. She exhaled, shoulders sinking. Because you're the only person who ever truly cared about me, she admitted. And I didn't realize what I had until I lost it. That sentence used to be my fantasy. Now it wasn't even tempting. I didn't hate her. I wasn't bitter. The best revenge is healing, and I had healed. Mira, I said quietly, you didn't lose me because you chose him. Her eyes widened slightly. You lost me because I found myself. Her breath hitched. A silent tear slid down her cheek. And maybe in another life, another timeline, that would have broken me. But in this one, it didn't. Take care of yourself, I said softly. I turned to leave. Michael, wait. I stopped. The shaking in her voice was unmistakable. Do you ever think about us? A question heavy with desperation. A question filled with a hope she had no right to have. I turned slightly, just enough to meet her eyes. I think about the man I used to be, I said, but not about us. That was the truth. Simple, clean, undeniable. Her face crumbled, not dramatically, not theatrically, just quietly. A quiet collapse only people who truly regret understand. Before she could say anything else, I walked away. Not fast, not emotional, just steady. Behind me, I could feel her watching. Not the way someone watches a person they want, but the way someone watches a lesson they learned too late. And as I crossed the parking lot, a strange calm settled in my chest. I wasn't angry at her. I wasn't hurt anymore. All I felt was clarity. Sometimes life takes people away so it can return you to yourself. And this was just the beginning. Walking back to my car, I felt lighter than I had in years. The world seemed sharper, clearer, like someone had polished reality while I wasn't looking. I hadn't expected Mira to come back into my life. Honestly, I thought that chapter was closed, burned and buried. But life has this funny way of reminding you, growth isn't just about moving forward. Sometimes it's about facing what you left behind and realizing it no longer holds power over you. I slid into the driver's seat, took a deep breath, and let the engine hum. It felt symbolic. I was moving. Not running, not escaping, just moving. For weeks after she left me, I had rebuilt myself without even realizing it. I focused on the things that mattered: work projects, morning runs, learning guitar for fun, weekends fixing little things around the house. I became the man I wanted to be, not the one anyone else demanded I be. And now, standing in that parking lot, I could feel it, the contrast between who I was then and who I had become. It was sharper than any mirror. I had stability, confidence, and clarity. Mira, she had chaos, regret, and lessons she wasn't ready to learn. The irony wasn't lost on me. The girl who wanted a bad boy had found herself trapped in the world she romanticized. She wanted spontaneity, danger, excitement. Now she had instability, irresponsibility, and sleepless nights. Sometimes life teaches through direct experience. I drove home in silence, Cooper bouncing in the passenger seat, as if he could sense the satisfaction radiating from me. Dogs always know when their humans are thriving. I chuckled to myself. That evening, I poured a glass of wine, sat on the porch, and watched the sun dip behind the mountains. Life was calm, predictable, and I was finally okay with it. A few weeks later, things began to shift even further. I started dating again, but differently this time. No desperate attempts, no rushing into anything, just observing, listening, and letting things unfold naturally. Her name was Alina. She wasn't flashy, dramatic, or chaotic. She laughed easily, thought deeply, and had a subtle intensity that drew you in. We met at a local bookstore, both reaching for the same edition of a photography book. Her hands brushed mine. The connection wasn't fireworks. It was something quieter, more enduring. We talked for hours in the coffee shop downstairs, moving from casual chat to personal stories effortlessly. She told me about her childhood, her small victories, her failures, and her dreams. I did the same. It wasn't a battle for attention, control, or dominance. It was a conversation between equals. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen, not just for what I did, but for who I was. And this realization hit harder when I unexpectedly ran into Mira again. It was at the grocery store. I was picking up ingredients for a homemade dinner with Alina when Mira appeared in the next aisle, fumbling with her phone, carrying too many bags, looking slightly disheveled. Jake wasn't there. Of course he wasn't. He never was. Mira froze when she saw me. Her lips parted, eyes wide. And for the first time, I saw a flicker of panic. "You're with someone?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded politely. Yes, her name is Alina. The way she bit her lip told me everything I needed to know. Regret is an emotion that doesn't wait for words. It sits in your chest, twists your stomach, and forces your eyes to betray you. She swallowed hard, trying to compose herself. That's good. I mean, I'm happy for you. Her words were hollow, her posture tight. Every inch of her screamed, I made the wrong choice. Alina, standing beside me, smiled warmly and held my hand. Not possessively, not out of competition, but gently, a silent message. This man is mine, not because he was a prize, but because he chose to share his life with me. Mira's gaze dropped. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. And in that moment, I realized something crucial. Life doesn't reward bad choices. It rewards consistency, integrity, and the quiet courage to remain true to yourself. Weeks turned into months. Alina and I grew closer. Weekends filled with hiking, cooking, and discussing projects around the house. She understood the value of planning, of building a life brick by brick. I didn't have to hide my habits or apologize for my routines. Instead, she admired them. Meanwhile, word of Mira's situation filtered through mutual friends. She had moved back in with her parents temporarily. Jake, still drifting. The exciting life she sought turned into a series of frustrating nights, arguments, and instability. I didn't gloat, I didn't revel, I simply lived. One evening, as Michael and Alina sat by the fireplace, cooking dinner together, I reflected on how far I'd come. The man Mira left behind was gone. In his place was someone grounded, confident, and aware of his worth. And that awareness was magnetic. It drew the right people, people who valued me, my dreams, and the quiet stability I offered. The key was growth, patience, and self-respect. No amount of chaos, drama, or edge could replace that. Life had delivered a powerful lesson. The girl who chose excitement over substance would face the consequences of her choices. Meanwhile, Michael had created a life full of meaning, love, and stability. And that realization, it was satisfying in a way words could barely capture. It's funny how life has a way of balancing itself. One day, you're chasing validation, trying to be someone else to impress a fleeting thrill. The next, you're standing still, and the universe drops everything into your lap because you stayed true to yourself. Alina and I settled into a comfortable rhythm. Not boring in the mundane sense, but satisfying in the way that stability can be. We explored new hiking trails every weekend, experimented with recipes neither of us had tried before, and took long drives with no destination, simply enjoying the quiet moments. Our relationship wasn't built on adrenaline or chaos. It was built on trust, laughter, and the knowledge that no matter what happened, we had each other's backs. Meanwhile, Mira's absence from my life was telling. She reached out rarely, if at all, and every time I heard a snippet of her struggles, it was like watching a cautionary tale unfold in slow motion. I didn't intervene. I didn't need to. The lessons she learned were hers alone. She wanted chaos, and now she had to live with the consequences. One night, Alina and I attended a small neighborhood concert. Acoustic, local musicians, nothing extravagant. It reminded me of the bars Mira loved so much, the places where unpredictability was romanticized. But this time, I experienced it differently. I wasn't yearning for chaos. I wasn't trying to be cool or spontaneous. I was simply present. During a break between sets, I noticed Mira in the crowd. She hadn't seen me yet, and I had no intention of approaching. Her posture was slouched, and she seemed smaller somehow. Jake wasn't with her, and her smile was forced, as if she were trying to project confidence she didn't feel. I took a sip of my drink, feeling neither pity nor malice. Instead, I felt a quiet satisfaction. She had made her choices, I had made mine, and the difference in the outcomes was undeniable. As the music played, I glanced at Alina. She smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Her eyes were calm, confident, and full of warmth. I realized that this was what I had been seeking all along. Not drama, not chaos, not a lesson in heartbreak, but someone who could walk beside me, steady, unwavering, and genuine. Mira, on the other hand, had chased illusions, and those illusions had left her stranded. A few weeks later, I ran into her once more, this time at a coffee shop. She recognized me immediately, her eyes widening. But this encounter was different. This time, there was no pretense, no forced composure, just the raw realization of where her choices had led her. "Hey," she said, softly, almost hesitant. I nodded politely, holding my coffee. "Hey." She looked around, as if searching for an escape. I just wanted to say," she began, then faltered. I didn't interrupt. I let the pause hang. You were right, she finally said. My eyebrows lifted slightly. You were right about a lot of things. About being responsible, about planning, about not chasing chaos. I sipped my coffee, keeping my expression neutral. Yes, I guess that worked out. Her lips pressed into a thin line. I I made a mistake. I thought I needed someone edgy, exciting, but I didn't. I needed stability, someone who cared, someone who actually showed up. It was strange hearing her admit that. Stranger still was that it didn't evoke the anger or sadness it might have a year ago. I had moved on, I had grown, and now I only felt a quiet, reflective clarity. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said, simply. She nodded, understanding that I wasn't going to fall back into old patterns. This wasn't closure for her. It wasn't revenge for me. It was the natural consequence of choices made and paths taken. As she walked away, I glanced at Alina, who had been waiting patiently a few tables over. She reached for my hand, a silent gesture that spoke volumes. We didn't need to say anything. The contrast between what I had now and what Mira had chosen was crystal clear. Life had a strange, poetic way of teaching lessons. It didn't scream in your face. It didn't hand out lectures. It simply allowed you to live, make decisions, and face the natural repercussions. Over the next few months, Alina and I continued to thrive. We traveled to small towns together, renovated parts of our homes together, and supported each other in our personal and professional growth. Every day, I appreciated the quiet, predictable happiness that Mira had once mocked. And slowly, I realized something profound. Being consistent, reliable, and true to yourself isn't boring. It's magnetic. It draws the right people into your life. It builds a foundation so strong that no amount of chaos can shake it. Meanwhile, Mira's story remained a cautionary tale. Her excitement, her search for the bad boy, had cost her more than she anticipated. She had gained lessons, but lost time, comfort, and a chance at something meaningful with someone who truly cared. And I had gained everything. A sense of peace, a partner who complemented my life, and a story I could look back on with gratitude. I finally understood what mattered most. Love isn't about the thrill of unpredictability. It's about connection, trust, and the quiet strength to build a life together. My girlfriend wanted a bad boy. She craved chaos, unpredictability, that constant rush that made her feel alive. And I was steady, reliable, predictable, the kind of man she didn't think she wanted, until life showed her who the real man was. By now, Alina and I had settled into a life that felt effortless, yet meaningful. We had routines, but not the boring kind. The kind that allowed room for growth, laughter, and unexpected joys without sacrificing stability. It was in this environment that I finally realized how far I had come, not just in life, but in self-worth, in patience, and in knowing my own value. It all came full circle one late afternoon. I was at a neighborhood farmer's market, browsing fresh produce with Alina, laughing at her exaggerated attempts to pick the perfect tomatoes. And then I saw them. Mira and Jake. They were arguing, as I suspected they would be. Jake was flustered, probably frustrated at yet another thing going wrong, while Mira looked exhausted, almost pleading. It was a stark contrast to the calm, laughter-filled life I now enjoyed. For a moment, she noticed me. Her eyes widened, her lips parting in surprise. And then there was recognition. I didn't approach. I didn't have to. Alina squeezed my hand, a silent reminder of where my loyalty and heart belonged. I watched as Mira did a quick calculation in her mind, comparing her life to mine. The realization hit her like a wave. Suddenly, it wasn't exciting to chase someone like Jake anymore. It wasn't thrilling to live in chaos. It was exhausting, and it was lonely. I smiled faintly, not out of malice, but out of a quiet satisfaction that comes when you've worked hard, stayed true to yourself, and let life sort itself out. Alina leaned closer. "I think she finally gets it," she whispered. I nodded. "Yes, but that's her lesson, not ours." We walked away, hand in hand, blending into the crowd, while Mira's gaze lingered on me. She wanted a bad boy, and now she could see clearly what she had given up. It was the kind of moment that doesn't require confrontation, explanation, or drama. The universe had done all the talking. Later that evening, I reflected on the journey. 3 years ago, Mira's words had cut me deeply. "Too boring," she had said. "You're not exciting enough." Back then, I had felt shock, confusion, even a tinge of self-doubt. But over time, I realized that being boring wasn't a flaw. It was a reflection of reliability, intelligence, and the ability to create a life that others could count on. Alina didn't want chaos. She didn't crave drama or the rush of living on the edge. She wanted a partner who showed up, who communicated, who could laugh at life, but also handle responsibility. And that's what I gave her. Mira had wanted to chase illusions, live for the unpredictable, and bask in the thrill of instability. She got it, but it came at a cost. Couches, eviction notices, financial stress, emotional exhaustion. She learned that excitement without foundation is fleeting. And perhaps only when faced with hardship do some people understand the value of what they once overlooked. Meanwhile, Alina and I thrived. We bought a small house that needed renovations, not for vanity or adventure, but because we enjoyed the process of building something lasting. Our weekends were filled with trips to hardware stores, coffee shop debates over paint colors, and planning small, meaningful adventures that strengthened our bond. Every night, as we cooked dinner together or watched a movie with our dogs sprawled across the living room, I felt the weight of contentment settle in. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't what Mira had been chasing, but it was real. Months passed, and the contrast between our lives and Mira's became undeniable. Friends would comment on how happy we seemed, how balanced and grounded our relationship was. I didn't need to prove anything. The evidence was in the life we were building. And then, one evening, out of the blue, Mira reached out. Her message was simple. I see now. You were the one I should have appreciated. I'm sorry." I stared at the screen for a moment, feeling none of the old frustration, hurt, or anger. Instead, I felt calm. "I hope you're learning the lessons you need," I replied. No recrimination, no drama, just honesty and closure. That was all she needed to hear. Because by then, I had already built a life filled with stability, love, and partnership. I didn't need her validation. I didn't need her apology. I had Alina, and that was everything. The story of Mira and Jake was a cautionary tale for me, but also a confirmation. It reinforced the value of being authentic, true to oneself, and patient. The kind of person who chases thrills will eventually meet reality. The kind of person who builds, nurtures, and remains consistent will eventually find someone who truly appreciates them. And that's exactly what happened. Alina and I eventually moved into a larger home, one that we remodeled with our own hands. We started small personal projects, traveled occasionally, and celebrated milestones quietly but meaningfully. Our relationship wasn't marked by adrenaline or drama, but by mutual respect, support, and love. Looking back, I can honestly say I'm grateful for the experience with Mira, not because of the heartbreak, but because it clarified what mattered most. And as for Mira, she got her chaos. She got the bad boy she thought she wanted. and she learned that excitement alone doesn't make a life worth living. Meanwhile, I had everything I needed: love, stability, and a future built with someone who valued it just as much as I did. The universe has a strange way of rewarding patience, authenticity, and perseverance. It doesn't always hand out instant gratification or dramatic redemption. Sometimes it works quietly, behind the scenes, aligning circumstances and people in ways you couldn't have orchestrated yourself. Alina and I stood together one evening, watching the sunset behind the hills near our home. The air was calm, the sky painted in shades of gold and rose. I realized in that moment that everything I had worked for, waited for, and stayed true to was worth it. No flash, no chaos, just peace, love, and a life built on genuine connection. Mira's regret, when it came, wasn't mine to relish. It was simply a reflection of choices made and lessons learned. And Michael? I remained the same man I had always been, steady, reliable, and true. Only now I had a partner who recognized that these qualities weren't flaws. They were the foundation of something real. Sometimes being boring isn't boring at all. It's powerful, it's attractive, and it's the kind of life that endures long after chaos fades.